Fast replies all day, little jokes, photos of her coffee, voice notes in the car. Enough flirting to make me feel stupid for doubting it. Then the second something had to become real, she slipped sideways out of it. Her name was Victoria. 25, sharp, funny, pretty in that effortless way that made even her messy hair look planned. The kind of woman who could send one line at 2 in the afternoon and keep you half distracted until midnight. We'd been circling each other long enough that I should have known better. We'd already had 2 almost dates. One turned into a last-minute family thing, the other into silence for 12 hours and then a casual sorry. I fell asleep like people just blacked out in full makeup on a Saturday. I was 31. I had a real job, steady clients, my own place, and a life that looked fine from the outside. But sitting there alone in that restaurant, checking the door every time it opened, I felt like I was 19 again and making excuses for someone who hadn't earned them. I'd even dressed for it without trying too hard. Dark shirt, watch, decent shoes. I got there on time. Ordered water first, then a drink, then food because the waiter had already started looking at me with that careful kind of pity. My phone stayed face up beside the plate. Nothing. At 8:17 she sent, parking now. At 8:34, still nothing. At 8:52, I stopped looking at the menu and started looking at myself. Not literally. Just that quiet internal inventory men do when something lands wrong. Was I too available? Too patient? Too easy to keep on standby because I never made a scene? By 9:05 I wasn't even angry. That would have been cleaner. I was just embarrassed. The place was nice enough to make it worse. Low lights, soft music, couples leaning toward each other like the night was going the way it was supposed to. I was halfway through deciding whether to leave cash on the table and disappear before the staff fully registered what happened when a woman walked in and looked straight at me. She wasn't Victoria. Older, maybe mid-40s. Dark-fitted coat, pale blouse, hair pinned up in a way that looked simple until you noticed how precise it was. She moved like someone who never rushed because nobody ever made her. She paused once near the entrance, found me, then came over with a calm expression that didn't match the situation at all. "Lucas?" she asked. I stood halfway without meaning to. "Yeah." She nodded at the empty chair across from me. "May I?" That alone was enough to throw me off. "Sure." She sat down, set her phone on the table, and looked at me for one steady second. "My name is Shannon," she said. "I'm Victoria's mother, and my daughter is not coming." I actually laughed once. Not because it was funny, because my brain needed a second to catch up. "Okay," I said. "That's not what I expected tonight." "No," she said evenly. "I imagine not." There was no fluttery apology in her voice. No fake softness. Just directness. Adult directness. The kind that immediately made me sit up straighter. "She should have told you herself," Shannon said. "I told her that twice. She didn't do it. I found that unacceptable." I glanced at my phone, then back at her. "She told you I was here?" "She told me everything." A faint, almost tired smile touched her mouth. "More than she probably realizes. Your messages, your jokes, your work. The fact that you keep giving her chances she has not earned. That one hit harder than it should have." I leaned back in my chair. "So you came here to apologize for her?" "I came here," she said, "because I was angry with her, and because I wanted to see whether the man she kept describing was actually real. I didn't know what to do with that, so I just looked at her. She held my gaze without any awkwardness at all. "This has nothing to do with your value," she said. "I hope you understand that. My daughter likes being liked. She is not as good at showing up as she is at creating the feeling that she might." It was honest enough to sting, mostly because I already knew it was true. The waiter came over like he'd been waiting for the scene to explain itself. Shannon ordered tea without opening the menu. Then she looked at my plate. "You barely ate." I kind of lost my appetite. I'm not surprised. For the first time that night, I smiled for real. She noticed. Of course she did. "Good," she said quietly. "You can still do that." I shook my head. "This is insane." "A little," she agreed. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a card, and placed it beside my glass. Now for the part that will sound even stranger. I picked it up. Her name, her design firm, clean branding, expensive paper. I run a studio, she said. Interior design, hospitality, private clients, some commercial work. Victoria showed me your portfolio 2 weeks ago. You're good. Better than good, actually. My firm needs a visual refresh, and I would rather hire someone with taste than sit through another agency presentation full of recycled nonsense. I looked from the card to her. You're offering me work? I'm offering you a meeting, she said. Paid work. If the meeting goes the way I think it will. I stared at her for a second, then laughed again, softer this time. An hour earlier I'd been waiting for a woman who couldn't decide whether I existed outside her phone. Now I was sitting across from her mother, being spoken to like an adult, handed a real opportunity, and feeling more seen than I had all month. When I finally got home that night, I left the card on my kitchen counter and stood there looking at it longer than I care to admit. I'd gone out thinking I was giving one woman one last chance. Instead, I drove back with the distinct feeling that something had just started, and I had no idea what to call it. I had a feeling this was going to be a wild ride. If you're curious where it leads, subscribe and stay with me. I waited until the next afternoon to call her. Not because I was playing anything. I just needed a few hours to decide whether the whole thing had actually happened or if I'd had some very polished stress dream in a restaurant. Her card was still on my counter when I woke up. Same clean lettering, same firm name, same direct feeling I got from her the night before. She answered on the second ring. Shannon, it's Lucas. I know, she said, and I could hear the small smile in her voice. Are you calling to tell me last night was too strange? Or to accept the meeting? The meeting. Good. Tomorrow at 11. I'll text you the address. That was it. No dragging it out, no airy little maybe this week. By the time we hung up, I was already realizing how unusual that felt. Her studio was on the second floor of a renovated brick building near the center. Clean exterior, black metal sign, big windows. The kind of place you noticed without it needing to shout. Inside, everything looked intentional. Warm wood, soft gray walls, shelves with material samples arranged by tone instead of cluttered by brand. A long table with sketches, fabric books, and a row of ceramic cups that probably cost more than my first apartment deposit. Felt like her. Not in a dramatic way. Just disciplined. Thought through. Quietly expensive. One of her assistants let me in, offered coffee, then disappeared into a back room. Shannon came out a minute later in a cream blouse and dark trousers, glasses in one hand, tablet in the other. She looked different in daylight. Less mysterious, maybe, but sharper. More real. And somehow that made her harder to ignore. Not easier. You came, she said. You sound surprised. I'm careful with optimism, she said, then nodded toward the table. Come on. Let me show you what I need. And she did. Clearly. No fog, no testing, no trying to impress me with words that meant nothing. Her firm had grown fast over the last few years, and the visual side of it no longer matched the quality of the work. Website, presentation decks, client-facing materials, brand consistency, project visuals. She wanted the whole thing tightened up. Not trendy, not loud, precise, confident, better. The more she talked, the more I understood why she'd built what she had. She noticed everything. Not just whether something looked good, but whether it said the right thing before anyone spoke. Half our first meeting turned into us standing over print samples and arguing about typography like it actually mattered. Which, with her, it kind of did. You're too restrained here, she said at one point, tapping one of my rough concepts. And you're trying to control the viewer before they've even looked at it. Exactly. That's not always a compliment. It is when I'm paying. I looked up at her, and she held my gaze for a beat too long to call accidental. That became the rhythm fast. We worked well together almost immediately, which usually made me suspicious, but with her it just felt earned. She challenged me without performing it. If she liked something, she said so. If she thought an idea was weak, she didn't soften it into nonsense. By the third meeting, I knew how she took her coffee, how she tucked loose hair behind one ear when she was concentrating, how her voice changed slightly when she moved from speaking as a business owner to speaking as a woman who actually cared about what she was building. And I knew I liked being around her more than I should have. One evening we were still at the studio after 8. Both of us pretending we were reviewing final layout options when the real work had been done an hour earlier. She leaned back in her chair, rubbed the bridge of her nose and said, "I haven't eaten since noon." I closed my laptop. "Then we should stop before one of us makes a terrible design decision out of hunger." "One of us? You're the one who almost approved beige text on an off-white background." She gave me a flat look. "I was testing whether you deserved the contract. By trying to blind your clients?" That got her. A real laugh. Low, warm, unforced. 10 minutes later, we were at a small place around the corner eating pasta and talking like we'd skipped 3 stages in knowing each other. Not flirting exactly. That would have made it simpler. It was worse than flirting. It was ease. With Victoria, everything had been anticipation. Waiting for a message. Waiting for a plan to hold. Waiting to see which version of her I'd get that day. With Shannon, nothing sagged in the middle. If she said 11, it was 11. If she asked a question, she listened to the answer. If she looked at me, I never had the feeling she was also looking over my shoulder for something better. At one point she set down her glass and said, "You know, my daughter likes intensity. She mistakes it for sincerity." I didn't answer right away. Shannon glanced at me. That was not an invitation to discuss her. "I know." Good. That should have closed it. Instead, it made the air between us feel more exact. When we stepped outside, the street was cool and mostly quiet. She stood beside me while the valet brought her car, and for 1 second neither of us moved to leave. I remember noticing how close she was. Not touching. Just close enough that I could smell her perfume and feel how dangerous simple things could get when 2 people were trying very hard to behave like adults. "This is becoming very easy," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes stayed on mine. "Yes," she said. "That's what worries me." Then her car pulled up, and she gave me a look that stayed with me the whole drive home. Not confused. Not careless. Just controlled. Which somehow made it obvious that whatever was building between us was real enough to need control in the first place. A day after that dinner, Victoria finally called me. Not texted. Called. I was in the middle of reviewing drafts when her name lit up on my screen, and for a second I just looked at it. A week earlier that would have hit me differently. This time I mostly felt tired. I answered anyway. "Hey," she said, and even her voice sounded careful. "Can we meet?" There was no playful tone in it. No pretending nothing had happened. Just a woman who knew she'd handled something badly and had run out of ways to decorate it. "Why?" I asked. "Because I owe you a real apology," she said. "Not one over text. And because my mother made me look at myself in a way I really didn't enjoy." That almost made me smile. We met the next evening at a small cafe near the river. Neutral ground. Bright enough to see each other clearly, quiet enough that nobody had to lean in and perform intimacy. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window in a dark sweater, both hands around a cup she wasn't drinking from. She looked good. She always did. But the thing that hit me first was how young she suddenly seemed. Not childish exactly, just unsettled. Like someone who had spent a long time living inside reactions and had only recently realized choices counted too. "Thanks for coming," she said. I sat down. "You said you wanted to apologize." "I do." And to her credit, she did it properly. No fake confusion, no vague talk about bad timing. She told me the truth as clearly as she knew how. She liked me. That part had been real. She liked how easy it was to talk to me. Liked that I didn't push. Liked that I kept showing up the same way every time. And that was exactly what made her panic. The second it started feeling like something actual instead of fun tension on a screen, she pulled away. Then when I stayed decent, she came back because the attention felt safe there. "I know how bad that sounds," she said quietly. "It sounds honest. It sounds selfish." I didn't argue. She exhaled through her nose and looked down at the table. "My mother said the worst part wasn't that I didn't come. It was that I let you sit there thinking maybe it was about you. That landed because it was true. I stirred my coffee even though it didn't need stirring. She was right. I know. There was a stretch of silence then. Not hostile, just clean. For once neither of us was filling space to avoid what mattered. Then she looked up at me with that directness I'd been waiting weeks to see. Is something happening between you and her? There it was. No easing into it. No side road. Just the one question that had probably been sitting in her chest since the night her mother came to that restaurant. Could have lied. Could have softened it into nothing, said we were only working together, said it was complicated, said I didn't know. But I was tired of half answers. Tired of leaving doors cracked open just because someone liked knowing they existed. So I told her the truth. I don't know exactly what it is yet, I said. But I know I want to find out. She held my gaze for 2 seconds, then nodded once like she'd already rehearsed hearing it. That's fair, she said, though her voice had tightened. I wasn't looking for this. I know. That's what makes it worse. I waited. Then she surprised me. I think I thought you'd stay in the same place, she said. Not literally. Just available. Like I could figure myself out slowly and you'd still be there when I stopped being weird. The bluntness of it was almost impressive. And now? I asked. And now I know that's not how life works. She gave a small, unhappy laugh. You don't put a person on hold just because you're confused. That hit me pretty hard. Have you ever been put on hold like that while someone figured things out? Tell me about it below. That was probably the most adult thing she'd said to me since I'd known her. She looked out the window for a moment, then back at me. There was hurt in her face, yes, but not outrage. Not ownership. Just the discomfort of finally seeing the full shape of something she treated too lightly. My mother likes you, she said. I didn't answer. She respects you, Victoria corrected. Which for her is bigger. Her mouth twitched like she hated admitting what came next. And honestly, if anyone deserves something good, it might be her. That shifted something. Not because it erased the awkwardness. Didn't. Nothing about this was neat enough for that. But it cleared the moral fog. She knew what she'd done. She knew her mother hadn't stolen some active love story. There had never been one. There had only been my effort, her hesitation, and too much time wasted in the middle. When we stood up to leave, she touched my sleeve lightly. I did like you, she said. I know. I just wasn't ready for someone who was actually there. That stayed with me after she walked away. Not because it made me want to go after her again. Didn't. It just made the whole thing make sense in a way that finally let it end. That night I sat in my car for a minute before going inside. Looking at my phone, Shannon's last message still open from earlier that afternoon about project revisions and a client presentation. For the first time, there was no static left in me about any of it. I wasn't caught between two women. I was standing at the edge of one clear choice, and this time I had no interest in pretending I didn't see it. The next time I saw Shannon, we were supposed to be discussing final presentation boards for one of her hotel projects. That was the official reason. In reality, I'd spent the whole drive over rehearsing one sentence and then throwing it out every 5 minutes because every version sounded either too careful or too dramatic. By the time I got to her studio, I was annoyed with myself. I was 31, not 16. I didn't need a speech. I just needed to stop hiding behind the project. She was alone when I walked in, standing at the long table with a stack of material samples and her glasses low on her nose. She looked up when she heard me, and for a second her expression changed in that small, private way I'd started noticing more often. Not surprise. Something warmer than that. You're early, she said. You say that like it's unusual. With most people, it is. I set my bag down but didn't open it. She noticed immediately. Her eyes moved over my face once, reading faster than most people talked. Something happened. I met Victoria. That made her go still, though only slightly. She took off her glasses and set them on the table. All right, she said. How did it go? She apologized. Shannon nodded once, calm but focused. And, I said, she asked if something was happening between us. This time the silence stretched. Not awkward, just exact. She didn't rush to fill it, which was one of the things I liked most about her. She never tried to manage a moment before it had fully arrived. "What did you tell her?" she asked. "The truth." A faint shift in her expression. Not fear. Not relief either. Just attention sharpening. "I told her I didn't know exactly what this was yet," I said. "But I knew I wanted to find out." She looked at me for a long second after that. Then she leaned one hand against the table, almost like she needed something steady under her. "That was a dangerous thing to say to me," she said quietly. It was more dangerous not to. That got the smallest smile out of her, but it faded quickly. She looked down for a moment, then back at me. "Lucas, if this moves forward, it doesn't stay simple. People talk. My daughter may have made peace with it today and feel something different next month. My friends will have opinions. Yours will too. And I am old enough to think about consequences before I step into them." "I know. Do you?" "Yes." I took a step closer. "I'm not standing here because it's convenient, and I'm not confusing ease with nothing. I know exactly why this matters." Her eyes held mine. "With Victoria," I said, "I was always waiting for the possibility of something. With you, I'm already in something, whether we name it or not. I don't want to pretend the project is the whole reason I'm here anymore." That landed. I could see it land. She crossed her arms loosely, not defensive, more like she was holding herself in place. "You've made this very hard to dismiss." I wasn't trying to make it easy. That low laugh again. Brief, almost disbelieving. "For weeks," she said, "I've been telling myself that I was simply enjoying your mind, your work, your company," which was true. Unfortunately, it was not the whole truth. I let that sit between us. Then she said the thing I think I'd been waiting to hear since the restaurant. "I was hoping you would get here on your own." Something in me relaxed at that. Not because it was a victory, because it was mutual, clean, chosen. I moved closer, slow enough to give her every chance to stop it. She didn't. When I kissed her, it wasn't rushed or messy or confused. It felt exactly like everything with her had felt once I stopped resisting it. Calm, certain, and stronger because neither of us was pretending. After that, things didn't become reckless. They became honest. We finished the project and launched the new presentation for her firm 2 weeks later. It went well, then better than well. A major client signed. Her team was thrilled. She introduced me openly, not vaguely, not like some secret tucked behind a work title. And the more normal we were about it, the less room there was for gossip to turn it into something cheap. A little later, she brought me to dinner with her oldest friend and that friend's husband. I knew I was being assessed within the first 30 seconds, and honestly, that was fair. But by dessert, the husband was asking me about my work, and her friend was teasing Shannon in that way only someone with 20 years of history can. Not one person treated me like a joke. Not one person treated her like she'd lost her mind. That mattered to her. I could tell. One night after all of it settled, after the launch, after the explanations, after the tension stopped hiding and turned into an actual life, we walked back to her place from dinner with our hands linked like we'd been doing it longer than we had. She looked over at me and said, "You know what I still find funny?" "What?" "You thought you were chasing my daughter." I smiled. "I know." She squeezed my hand once. "And all that time, you were just being moved in the right direction." That was exactly how it felt. I'd spent weeks